Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. Remember to subscribe to our free podcast so you won't miss any of our illuminating content. Here is episode 162.
So learning to let go and let them lead and fill out where they are rather than trying to force on where we think they should be.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Tiffany Sweeney. Tiffany is a full-time traveling road schooling mom of 5. With a background in theater education, she knew she didn't want a conventional school for her children. But she didn't know what the answer would be for her family. It's been 7 years since her oldest started school. She's learned a lot since then. They started out with more conventional homeschoolers that evolved into unschooling and also road schooling as they travel the USA in their RV. Welcome, Tiffany.
Hello.
I'm so excited to have you join us. I've never talked to a road schooler, so this is going to be a very unique podcast. But before we get into any of that, would you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your family?
Sure. I have 5 kids. They range in age from 13 down to almost 2. So big range there. They're all active, crazy kids, right?
Yeah.
And we homeschool, and my husband, he also works from home, so that is how it has enabled us to travel.
That's awesome. And it's a remote type business, and so you have like the freedom and luxury to be able to travel around the USA. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. That's great. And do you want to go tell us a little bit more about how you found your mission and passion? I mean, why did you choose to homeschool, first of all? And then let's move into what road schooling is like.
Okay. Well, I got my degree in theater and education. And when I finished it, my oldest wasn't in kindergarten yet. So, I had an idea of what I thought education should look like. I had been exposed to the public school system. And I wasn't too thrilled with it, but I didn't feel like I wanted to homeschool. I was homeschooled myself, but it was just something that I thought, I'm never going to do that. Not any real reason why. It's just you're young and you're thinking, I'm not going to do what my mom did. I'm going to do something different. But when he got ready for school, he's 5 years old, and I looked at my husband and I said, I am not sending him to school. I'm not going to do that. What do you think about homeschooling? And he was on board. So that's how we kind of started. And when we started, like I said, I was much more conventional. We bought the curriculum sets. We had this set of books, and we were going to do this day and this much in a year. But that didn't work so well. So, I still had those fun activities that I wanted, the hands-on stuff, but I still had this pressure of I needed to get through this certain set of check marks for the year. So as he and I worked and we learned and grew together, I started leaning towards a more unschooling type approach. It just wasn't working to sit and force something that it was frustrating for him, it was frustrating for me, and neither one of us were happy. So that's how I started doing more reading about unschooling and different types of education and what that would look like, and kind of became more active in our local community with seeking out people who educated more in a relaxed way and not so much a set curriculum.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, like as being a homeschooled person yourself, could you experience some of that with your own homeschooling life? Is that did you know that unschooling would work? I mean, because some people, they're going huge leaps from the traditional public school to kind of moving towards the set curriculum. But did any of your previous experience with homeschool give you a little bit more confidence, or how did that all play out?
When we first started homeschooling, it wasn't really common back then. It wasn't that long ago, but back then it wasn't that common. And, we had our set of curriculum, and I was a very independent learner, very structured, very motivated. That was just my personality. And so basically I kind of schooled myself. So not necessarily an unschooling per se, but more of an independent style of learning. I started when I was in 7th grade. and went through 12th grade, and actually enabled me to start college when I was 16 and did dual enrollment my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college, and then I graduated 1 year early. So it worked really well for me, but I didn't have a whole lot of experience with the unschool side of things just because it wasn't my personality, and I started so late after I had been in a structured setting. It was a little scary for me.
Yeah, I would imagine. Well, and how did road schooling play into it? What was your thought process behind road schooling? I think that's every person's dream, of doing that, but give us the background to that.
So we had always kind of thrown around the idea with my husband, we should just sell everything and buy an RV, but it was just kind of a far-fetched dream that you just kind of say, and everybody has those things that they say, oh, we really should do this, but you don't really think you're going to do that. Well, about 18 months ago, I was swimming with my son, and I had a sudden cardiac arrest.
Wow.
And he ended up saving me and getting help, and I was without a pulse for 15 minutes. And they got me to the hospital, got me on life support. I was in a coma, and there was only about a 2% chance of me surviving. Wow. And it was a smaller chance of me with no major deficits. Like, they were basically telling my husband that I might wake up, but I would never walk again. I might not ever talk again. I might not ever be myself again. But obviously, I did wake up, and I made a complete recovery and dumbfounded all the doctors. But that's just me that, they tell me I'm not going to do something, I'm going to do it. So anyways, I got an ICD implanted, I got recovered, and when that happened, that just kind of made us stop and think, okay, what do we really want to do with our life? What's important to us? And for us, that was it. We wanted to travel, we wanted to spend time making memories with our kids and seeing the U.S., and we already pretty much in the position with homeschooling and him already working from home to do it. We obviously needed to do some research and buy an RV and, figure all that side of it out. But we had a great opportunity, and, we felt in our hearts that it was really important that, you live the life that you want to live because you don't ever know. So it was a really eye-opening experience.
Yeah.
Go ahead and say, we're going to do this.
Puts it really into perspective of what's really important. And I think that's a great lesson for all of us, is that, we may not have this life-threatening situation, but we all need to do that evaluation and really decide if we're really living the life that we want to live and not just, following even as homeschoolers, we can do that, right? We can end up living a life that somebody else thinks we should be doing.
Right. And I think that is hard, just as a person and as a homeschooler, to not get sucked into this is what they're doing in school, and this is the list of things that we should be doing. And it's been really hard for me to break away and be like, I don't have to do that. It's okay. We can do something different.
Yeah. Well, and tell us what travel is like in homeschooling. In some ways I'm like, that'd be so nice because it's a very small space. So that it would be easier to clean, but yet at the same time, it would just be like, sometimes I've done the, living in a trailer for a week, and I'm just like, it's almost too close of quarters. Give us an idea of how, you make that work with your family life.
Right. It is crazy, especially because my husband is usually working from here. So that's a whole other set of challenges. But we try to get out most days. I try to plan time away. I work with him on his call schedule so that we know when can we work here and not disturb him where he's on the phone and that kind of thing. So a lot of days we'll plan outings, and I've just learned how to research the different areas that we're in, and have really been kind of amazed. I knew it was out there, but I think when you start digging, there's just so much. Anywhere you go, even like the most rinky-dink town, there's some really cool resource out there. So just researching and finding places and things that we can do, and that's kind of what we base our school around. So we go out and explore, and I usually try to preview it beforehand, so the older kids will have things that they can work on their own, and they've kind of gotten into this habit where they want to do their school at night, and I'm totally fine with that. It's quieter, and they're getting to those preteen years where their brain seems to work better at night anyway, so they'll a lot of times spend some time at night doing some of the legwork, doing some quieter activities, where during the day we can go out and do things, experience things, see things. So that's how we've made it work.
That's awesome. Well, and I kind of skipped ahead, but I'm so curious about what, what you're doing and stuff. But I really want to hear how you feel like your overall paradigm and your educational philosophy changed over time and with experience. I mean, what is the key things do you think that you've learned from that experience?
I think one of the biggest things that made me change was reading, teaching reading. My oldest child really struggled with that and struggled with that structure. And, I was like, he's 6, he's got to be reading, he's got to do this. And it was really frustrating for both of us because it just wasn't where he needed to be and what he needed to learn it. And so when I was able to step back and we started unschooling and I took the pressure off of reading, and then actually a few years passed, and then I gave him some tools to do it on his own and was amazed by how much he just did on his own. He caught himself up, he learned it, he was excited when I let him lead the way. And so learning to let go and let them lead and fill out where they are rather than trying to force on where we think they should be.
Yeah. Well, and we were talking before we started recording how, the atmosphere in your home and in the environment that they're learning in is so critical in getting them to read. And sometimes when we're pressuring them to do things that maybe they're not ready to, we're sending messages to them, of you're inadequate or you're not smart enough. I mean, and those are some of the messages that got sent to us that, we're carrying around to this day, that plays around in our head. What you're feeling on that too is following, what they feel comfortable doing at that moment.
Right. I think that's absolutely, because I do think that, like you said, it does send the wrong messages when they feel that pressure, whether we intend for them to feel that pressure or not. It's still going to be there if we have these expectations. And just on the reverse side of that, my child who started school last year, when he was 4, I was doing some reading assessments, because that's one thing I like to kind of know that, they're kind of up to par on reading and math, and we just kind of will check in on those things. Well, the 4-year-old wanted to do a reading assessment, and I knew he, could sound a couple things out because, I'd seen him do it with his little books, and I said, sure, we'll do it. Well, I did it, and he was reading on almost a 3rd grade level.
Wow.
I said, when did you learn this? He goes, I just taught myself. So for him, at an early age, he was ready and he felt no pressure. And I was like, well, maybe I just should have put no pressure on the other kid from the get-go. You really taught me something. So, it's interesting to see how every kid is ready at a different time. And
yeah.
I have 5 and none of them are remotely alike.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I was reading an article recently that talked about as long as they're in a really text environment world, that reading does really come more naturally than what we think. We think that they have to have these formalized, structured lessons, but if they're surrounded by books and surrounded by people that are reading, there's a lot that they do pick up on their own. Is that kind of what your experience has been?
Yes, I think that's definitely the case. And I've even noticed as we've been traveling around, we're always out and there's museums or we're at a historical place and there's things to read, and it just really draws them in now rather than me having to say, sit and read this. They're wanting to read it. They're wanting, to be around these different things because they're interested in it. And so, I do think that just having that exposure to, being out places and things like that you can read, and at home just having books and texts that are interesting to them. My 6-year-old is interested in field guides, so I've got field guides laying around, and he'll sit and read field guides and tell me the most random things when we're out on hikes about animals that I have no idea, just because it's one of the things that he's passionate about.
Well, something that he loves to do. Well, let's kind of talk about the travel education style. And I haven't asked this for a little while because I think it's just the most silly question, but maybe people are wondering, since you're traveling, is, what do you do for socialization for your kids? I mean, do they miss having friends and being around like a regular social network? I mean, what's your feeling on that?
Right. And I think that is, as they get older, and I have 11 and 13 now. So as they get into those teen years, we've talked about, when's it going to be important for them to have a more stable social scene, or, is that even important? And I don't know the answer to that. But right now, what we do is we have friends all over the U.S., basically. You meet people. So we are always seeing somebody every couple weeks, at least, that we know and that they hang out with. so that's been one thing that we've kind of made sure. The oldest two, they're allowed to email and text their friends. So that's, I've encouraged them to do that and to learn how to stay in touch that way, send postcards, write letters, so socialize that way. But they meet people, everywhere we go. I feel like that since they've started traveling, that it's really matured them and gave them confidence. It was hard when we first started because they'd always been in one city, kind of with the same group of people. And then, they go into some completely different environments. And so we've talked through it and, how do you meet people? And it's been kind of a good lesson because after they've met some people, they're like, oh, yeah, we're great friends now. And she just didn't talk to me because she didn't know if I'd want to talk to her. And I didn't talk to her because I was just feeling shy. And so we talked about, that's usually how it is. So if you just jump in and introduce yourself, that you'll usually have something in common and usually like the person. And they're probably thinking the same thing, but then they don't know if they want to talk to you. So it's really helped them just learn how to have confidence in themselves and go meet people and, form friendships and acquaintances fairly easy, which was a kind of a neat skill to see them develop over the past year. And I think it also gives them the chance to talk to adults more and be in settings where they talk to adults more. We've been, camping next to older couples, and my children love to talk to older couples, which, some children, that totally intimidates them, but I think that my kids will sit and talk to them forever. One night, my son was supposed to be putting away something, and I was like, he's been out there for 5 minutes. So I peeked my head out, and there was the guy next door to us, and they were sitting at a picnic table chatting. The guy was a war vet, and they were talking about some history thing. And
that's cool.
So it was kind of cool to see. And we've also been out places, and if they're exploring the museum or aquarium, and I'm keeping up with the 3 little kids, the 2 older kids will go on and kind of do stuff. And if they have a question or interested, they'll seek somebody out and just talk to them and ask them questions. I had a guy last time, he's like, is this your son? And I said, yes. And I was like, well, what did you do? And he's like, he is just so inquisitive. I really enjoyed talking to him. He's been sitting here for 30 minutes asking me questions about stuff. So, I think that it's a different kind of socialization than they would get in school or even if they're at home. But I think that, the skills that they get and that they are being socialized, it's not like we're just staying with people, different places all the time.
Well, and I imagine if you're out and about, like you said, that they're going to be more inquisitive, learning from other people, and then also more comfortable. But just for my audiences, their peace of mind, that seems to be everyone's question is, what they do.
Right.
But that's awesome. It is. Yeah. Well, and as your kids get older, I love the attitude that you have that, you'll assess that, of what you're going to do. And maybe they're just going to be comfortable all the time, just traveling and meeting new people. You just never know. But
right. And so that's why I do try to kind of keep an open conversation with them, because I feel like they're old enough and they're getting old enough to have input. So we kind of discuss it and talk about what it will look like in a few years. And we don't know that, but they know that we can talk about it and discuss it at any time.
That's great. So tell me, what are some of the benefits that you feel like your family has seen by traveling around and doing road schooling?
Well, I think one of the biggest benefits is just them being able to kind of immerse themselves in the different areas or time periods or histories or, environments that we're in at that time. It's been a really cool experience because it's made the learning more meaningful. When you can go actually see a Civil War fort and hear stories there about the people, what happened there. It's just kind of started putting the pieces together and made learning more personal for them.
Yeah. Really come alive, at least.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I know everybody can't travel all the time, but there's so many things that you can do within your city that I think if you just start to take advantage, because I don't think I took advantage of the kind of things that I could have taken advantage of when we were stationary. And just, thinking about that, because it does, and it will spark their interest on, you don't ever know what it's going to spark their interest on. I've been surprised. Like we went to a historic meal this week, and I was thinking, history, it's going to be really cool. Well, no, it was science, because they were really interested in how the meal worked and the way it was all put together. And I was like, okay.
Well, but that's another thing, too, that I think is really great about that style of learning is that, Sometimes we grew up with everything being segmented, how math is one subject and science is another subject. But when you're there and you're, doing something, you're using all of those senses, you're using all of those different learning, math. I mean, it's all together. And really, that's how our life really is, that there's nothing segmented.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the biggest parts of unschooling is that it kind of shows you the big picture. Like it all works together. Before we kind of started this, I had a kid going, I'm not ever going to use math. Why do I have to learn to read? I don't need to learn to read. But then when they start to see how it all really works out in their real world and they're able to be out there and be like, oh, okay, this makes sense. I want to build stuff and invent stuff, so I'm going to need math to be able to figure out how these different things work. So that's been a great positive side of unschooling.
Before we go on, let's listen to this message.
Hey fire starters, are you looking for a new way to listen to the Luminous Mind? Try listening on Stitcher. Haven't heard of Stitcher? Think of it as radio on demand. You can listen to the Luminous Mind anytime, anywhere. There is no downloading, no syncing, no wasted memory. Just stream your favorite podcasts such as The Luminous Mind. Stitcher is available on iOS, Android, Nook, iPad, and also from your favorite internet browser. Don't have Stitcher? Download it free today at Stitcher.com or in the App Store. And make sure you rate and review The Luminous Mind so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.
Welcome back to The Luminous Mind with Tiffany Sweeney, creating a traveling tribe. When you talked about how inquisitive your kids have gotten, do you feel like that travel has really helped with that? I mean, more so than when you were, staying stationary and doing your traditional school work every day?
I do. I think it's made them think about things differently because they see things or, see different things, but also just being out there and talking to different people has made them actually think about things differently, and they can kind of connect, pieces in a different way to whereas they couldn't take their self out of their little bubble before, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I've had a few people that have done like world schooling, they travel and do things like that. And they do say that when you're traveling, all of your, I think we've discussed this before, but all your senses are alive and awake. And sometimes when we're in a habitual, stationary life, we're walking through life pretty much on autopilot a lot of the times. But when you're moving and you're going to different places all the time, it opens up all those senses and it allows that learning to just flourish and thrive. Just wanted to add my 2 cents. I mean, it's so wonderful to see that in your children. But do you feel like there have been any obstacles that you faced? And, what do you feel like you've learned from those struggles?
I obviously think an obstacle is having 5 kids at 5 different ages. So that's fine. That challenge is going to be no matter what. But it's always, to me, it's challenging to, okay, we're going to go to this old historic mill today. What's going to work for the 2-year-old? What's going to work for the 12-year-old? How can I make sure? And most places I found actually will be able to cater to every age. Sometimes you have to be a little creative. And it's also made the older 2 become a little more independent. They're not totally stuck with us. They can walk around and read things on their own. And I don't have to stand beside them and say, go read this. They'll kind of explore on their own. And then they're excited to come back and report to me, oh, Mom, guess what? We just read this and this is how it works. And, they're telling me all about it, which I think is really important for them to be able to relate what they learn to other people. So that is a challenge at different ages. And I think another challenge is just choosing what we're going to do. There's so much.
Boy, that's a tough one, huh?
I feel like,
but it really is.
Guys, we're going to stay home and we're going to, do some of these things today because there's always stuff to do and you can go. And so I think learning also to just say, okay, we're going to have a down couple days and we're going to, work on writing some things and we're going to write some letters to friends and we're going to clean up the RV a little bit or just, read and relax a little bit. So learning to say no and that it's okay. We don't have to go every day. For me, that's been a challenge because I get really excited and I want to go see it. I want to go do everything.
Well, and this is just kind of an off-the-cuff question, but one of the things that just kind of popped in my head, has it been a challenge for your kids to, because obviously if you're traveling, you can't take like every toy that they ever love with them, and was there any like scaling back? Do you know what I mean? Like having to really like kind of minimize your things, I guess, live more simply.
Yes, before we started traveling, I was kind of already going on that path. I was just kind of fed up with having stuff, it kind of being the focus of, oh, I need this, I've got to have that. And so we had kind of already started that process, but we still had a lot. And, you don't realize how much you really have until you have to put it all inside a 37-foot RV. But it gets one drawer. Yes, so we really, really scaled back the toys. The older kids have one drawer that they share, it's split. And, they kind of have their special things, their activities, their knitting or felting or things like that they want to work on. But, older kids, their hobbies usually don't take up as much stuff as toys, Yeah. So the little kids, they each have one, like, cubic bin, like you get at Target, that they can put their toys in. And then we have one bin of books that we try to kind of rotate out. Grandmas will bring us some new books or we'll get some new books. And so we'll kind of try to keep those rotated out to where they don't get tired, but we always have books there. But I obviously can't have a bookcase of books.
Yeah.
It's too much weight. So yeah, but honestly, I think that I could probably get rid of most toys and they wouldn't miss them because they're, they want to go outside and play, or if they go outside, they don't want to play with toys. They're playing with sticks and dirt or rocks, or, it's all the open-ended kind of things that they enjoy. We have a box of art supplies, and, they'll pull that out and do that. But as far as toys, I've really found that there's very, very few toys that they even are interested in. So that's been, I was concerned, and it was harder for me, I think, to let go of some of the toys than for them. I'm like, oh no, we got this for your birthday, you need to keep this. But in reality, it's funny to see that they just don't really need all the things that we think that they need.
Yeah. Well, I think that's such a great lesson that you're teaching them of stuff, and how that really, I think, I agree that a lot of the stuff that we have, it just clutters our mind, it clutters our houses, it makes us kind of selfish in a way. And so I feel like that teaching that at a young age of like things are just things and experiences are really what we want to have, not things, is really a wonderful lesson. So that moves me kind of into my next questions is, tell me the success that you feel like you've seen.
But like I said before, I feel like socially, which is interesting to me, that I feel like they've all kind of blossomed, and just their maturity and their confidence has, grown in leaps and bounds since we started this. And even the older two, they get into that age where school's not cool and they don't want to learn. But I really feel like that they've kind of gotten more of a passion about it. And my son, who was like, I don't want to learn history, is, loves it now. He wants to hear about it, and we'll sit there and we'll read about it, and, he's interested. He wants to know. And, I think one of the cool things is that we talk about how it's a story. History is people's stories. So look at it like that, and I think being able to see the things has really sparked their passion for just learning in general.
Well, in history, isn't that when you're visiting things, you are diving into history quite a bit? Yes,
I would say that we are. Yeah, I would say that history is definitely one that's easy, the easiest. We go to aquariums and zoos and some different things like that, but I feel like that after a while, they're like, okay, we've seen enough aquarium, unless they're really into biology, then, have focused on the history.
That's great. So Tiffany has a blog that she does some blogging and some different things. Tell me how you've used that to help other people.
So my plan with that is, and it's still a work in progress, it's one of those things that I'm working on, but I really want to create a kind of a guide for each, big city, big stop that we stop in, and have the resources that we've used and kind of some of the activities that we've used when we've used that place as a springboard, for other topics, and have it compiled, because as I was traveling, I was like, this would be so nice if I didn't have to sit here and research all this myself, because it takes a lot of time. It's a full-time job.
Yeah.
And in addition to going and doing it, I have to sit and pull everything and figure out, how it all works together. So I'm hoping to put all that there. And then generally just to inspire people to, live the life that they want, whatever it is, even if it's not traveling, but just be passionate about whatever it is that you want to do and to jump into it.
That's great. And have you seen some success with that? I mean, what has your experience been with reaching out to other people like that?
I have people tell me all the time, oh, you inspire me so much. Like I said, we have the one family I was telling you about earlier who's probably going to start traveling. And she's like, you gave me the confidence that we could do it. So that's kind of cool to hear about other people who, even if it's not traveling full time, but just give somebody the confidence to step away from whatever they think that they should be doing or have to do and say, I can school my kids differently, or I can travel in school if I choose to. So
you're setting the trail. You're the trend setter. That's great. So tell me, what are some personal habits that you feel have been really helpful to your success?
I think one that's really hard, but that does make me successful, is just creating time and space for myself. And it's really hard because we're all in RVs. Taking the time to make sure that I step back and I get to do things that I need, or, I can recharge. So that's one thing that helps me be successful in schooling, because if I'm depleted, then I'm not going to be able to give them everything that they need. I'm going to get burnt out. So I do always try to do that. And part of that is also just making sure me and my husband get to hang out and the kids go to bed early and we can stay up and, just do different things like that.
Well, and have you struggled with that at all about, I'm thinking going to the library and some of those things are harder to do when you're not like a resident. Is it harder to find like a place to work out or, things like that kind of some of those situations, if you're a resident, it's easy to get a membership somewhere, but if you're just traveling, it's really difficult.
Right, and that is something that, has been different because you don't really stay at one place too long. Libraries you can go to and you can use the books there, and that's great because, little kids, they love just to go and sit and they'll read, like Christmas, they get to read any book they want to, and they're all new to them, and the older kids can, work on things there that they want to. We just don't have the ability to check them out and take them with us.
Yeah.
And then as far as like the gym or working out, I've just kind of had to adapt and do things that I can do in the RV, from the RV. I really enjoy running and biking, so we all have mountain bikes, so we do a lot of biking and we do a lot of hiking together as a family.
There's usually trails wherever you're at, right?
Right. That is one thing. We do usually seek out a cool bike trail, a cool bike greenway, and a cool hike, just to kind of get a feel for the area.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, tell me, what books do you feel like have been the most influential in your success?
Well, one earlier that we were kind of talking about when we talked about creating a simple life is Simplicity Parenting, and that's by Kim John Payne. It just talks about how there's so much in our culture and there's all this noise from all these different things, whether it's activities or toys or background noise at the TV even, but just, learning to kind of have a simpler life and take all that out, and how children can really flourish from that. So that is one thing that we have done with, the RV, is it kind of removes a lot of the stuff that you don't need, stuff, activities, that kind of thing. So it does really simplify things.
Well, and I think that's a problem that our society right now is really struggling with is, parenting. Everything seems really difficult. Parenting, schooling, just our general life of how crazy everything is. And really, if we can simplify things, we enjoy our lives more, we're happier, and we get along better as a family as well. Is that some experience you've had with simplifying it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And then a couple of other books are How Children Learn by John Holt, and he just talks about, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, he just talks about how learning is kind of intuitive. So it's kind of the unschooling approach without calling it unschooling per se, but in how, like I said earlier, removing the pressures from them and just letting them learn through what's around them and what's going on. So I think his philosophies are great. And then another quick read that was really, I liked it because it's like unschooling rules, but it's 55 lessons or something. So like the lessons are all pretty short, so you can like pick it up and you can read a couple of paragraphs, and kind of gives you like a little pick-me-up inspiration for like, okay, this is, some ways this types of learning works.
That's great. Well, sometimes when you're a busy mom, the couple of minutes, if you can grab nuggets here and there, it really helps out. So that's great. Yeah. So what mentors do you feel like you've had along the way that have made a significant difference in your life?
So I think that the first person who really made me start thinking about education differently was a professor I had in college. And she was a theater professor, but she specialized in children's theater and then education. And so I had a lot of courses with her. But one of the courses that really, I really learned from her in was a course where I went into schools, into public schools, and we used theater, dramatic play, to teach whatever subject that the teacher wanted us. So we would develop a unit study on this lesson. And that was kind of the first time that I really saw kids, learning to lead themselves in learning. And, they were teaching themselves and they got really excited about it. And she was so passionate about it and fun and exciting, and I just really loved working with her. I would say she was one of the first people who really started helping me think about education differently. And then my mom, while she's, not really an unschooler per se, but she did homeschool back, me and my brothers when it was kind of the unpopular thing to do. And she's always told me, don't worry about it. Don't worry about what's normal. I had to just quit worrying about that. They're going to learn when they're ready. So while she's not necessarily like an unschooler in quotations, I think she kind of started to have that mentality as she homeschooled, and has given me the confidence to be like, okay, having her support behind me was really nice to be like, okay, I don't have to worry about this, Or if I was feeling bad, I could call her and be like, Mom, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she'd be like, just don't worry about it. They're going to learn when they're ready. It's fine. So I think both of those two people were really important with how I got to where I am today.
Well, and I really have a lot of respect for like the 1970s, I don't know how old you are, but those older, in that time frame, because they really did have to have a lot of courage. Those were the ladies that were getting the notes in the mailbox of so-and-so thought they were ruining their children, and really nasty stuff that we nowadays, the modern homeschooling mom, it's becoming a really popular thing almost, where people are more intrigued and they're, wanting to learn versus wanting to criticize. And so what a wonderful mentor, great mentor. So do you feel like if you could leave a legacy, what would it be? And, how is those personal habits developing into that legacy?
I guess basically I just want people to, just think, I lived the life with a passion for living, learning, and loving, and I lived it to the fullest, and that it inspired them to embrace whatever they think is important and do it.
That's great. And before we say goodbye, do you have any final parting words of advice? And then give us your contact information so we can get in touch with you.
I would just say, don't ever put off the life that you want to live, because tomorrow you never know what's going to happen. And, I'm thankful that I got the second chance. That's what I always tell everybody. Don't wait till tomorrow. Do whatever you want to do right now.
Eat the dessert first, right?
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. So my contact information, my email is mytravelingtribe@gmail.com. And then my website is www.mytravelingtribe.com.
Great. Again, our contact information is mytravelingtribe.com. However, we're going to be sure to link all that information that we discussed today, including some of the books and different things, on our website as well. But thank you so much, Tiffany, for joining us and for helping light our minds on fire. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Tiffany Sweeney, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and get our new monthly newsletter. Then check out our services tab to see how we can continue to assist you, our fire starters. Also, to help us continue production of illuminating content, go to our sponsor tab at theluminousmind.net for more information on sponsorship and affiliate programs. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and now Instagram. Get our free audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider these easy ways. Tell your friends about us. Leave us a review. Share our content. Tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.